So in May 2021, we commiserate 10,000 hours since the beginning of the pandemic. And when you do something for 10,000 hours, you're supposed to become a world expert in doing it. And so I thought I would share some of the tough life lessons I learned during the last 10,000 hours of my life. One of the first lessons I learned during the pandemic is how rare it is to have a true friend, right? We sometimes like to behave in a friendly way. Sometimes other people behave in a friendly way to us. But when it comes time to crunch, a lot of times you don't have as many friends as you thought you did, right? It's kind of like the economy, right? A lot of people thought they had millions of dollars in stocks or whatever asset, the housing bubble, and they really didn't when it was stress tested, right? That's how I like to view a lot of relationships in everyday life. So the first week of the pandemic, I frantically checked into an Airbnb. I was living out of my car at the time. I used to live out of my car a good 7 or 8 months out of the year when the weather was nice. I love it. The freedom to sleep somewhere new every day, mingle with people, and then have resources to go to the Computer Olympia and other conferences. That never bothered me, but obviously you can't do that during the pandemic. So I checked into an Airbnb and I got a really good deal on it because obviously nobody was traveling. This is mid-March of 2020 we're talking about. But I only booked it for 3 weeks because I thought we would jump right back to normal and I would go back to my old lifestyle, right? We all did. Now, at the end of 3 weeks, I was looking to extend the lease on that place, and I discovered that Governor Inslee had signed an emergency declaration, and we would be allowed to renew our lease, even if it was a short-term lease, like on an Airbnb, at the same rate. They were not allowed to increase our rent. So I had gotten along with the landlord very well. She's from India, and I was bragging to her about writing my computer games. She was bragging about, she's very religious and collects a bunch of religious artifacts. We were bragging about stuff like that. And so I went up to her to inform her that I was going to renew the lease on that place. You know, this is an emergency, right? You don't want me going out there and picking up a virus or bringing it back here or bringing something out of it, right? And I thought she would be very understanding. It turns out she was hoping I was going to be checking out because she had family members from other parts of the country. And as soon as I invoked the eviction moratorium, that was the end of our being so friendly to each other, right? It turned it into a very adversarial relationship. And it made me realize just how many friends we actually do have, right? I ran into the same trouble at my workplace, obviously. Back in April, May 2020, there were a lot of changes. I still kept my job, but obviously there were a lot of changes, and it really showed just how many friends I really did have in relation to how many friends I thought I did, right? Now this is tricky for me because I'm a private tutor, and sometimes some of my clients or their parents, I get a lot of clients who are Asian, just like myself. This past year has been very tough on Asians, obviously. And sometimes they're a little bit too close for comfort. Some of my clients, you know, they're in their late teens. They almost have a crush on me. Sometimes their parents see me almost like an extended family member. It becomes a little bit too close for comfort. What I really love about working on Zoom is that sometimes I'll turn my face away and I'll show the chalkboard that I'm writing on instead of my entire face, right? Sometimes that causes the association to lose some of its value. You don't want to be too close to your clients, right? I've learned to take every friendship with a grain of salt, right? Especially if you're doing business with that person, right? The only true friend we really have is our friendship with ourselves, right? Everything else, even family members, even your significant other, some of that can be very transitory, right? I've learned to take all of that with a grain of salt. Now, back in early 2020, I made a New Year's resolution to normalize my relationship with food. I had some troubles with eating disorders. I was out of control. And so I started going on intermittent fasting. I would fast 16, 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours, and I would feel so good. Now the problem is that I tell people how good I feel, right? I tell you guys on YouTube, I tell my coworkers, even though, you know, sometimes they're not true friends, like I said, right? I sometimes tell my roommates, my landlord, and people know that I feel good. The problem is people unintentionally sabotage my fasting from time to time. Even though they know how good I feel. I'm not saying they intentionally do that. Sometimes it feels like they are, though, especially at my workplace. I sometimes get angry at people who intrude on my fasting because I feel like they're trying to sabotage my career, right? They want me to not feel good at work, so then I end up losing my job so they can steal my position. Sometimes the workplace can feel very cutthroat, right? So you feel like somebody's trying to sabotage. And, but that's probably not their intent, right? At least not consciously, right? And it just goes to show that nobody can feel good on your behalf, right? You have to fast so that you can feel good, right? Nobody can feel good for you, right? Similarly, when I coach other people to fast and they do fast, I can feel good about them, but I can't feel their happiness, right? And I try to be conscious about that because obviously when I'm coaching somebody on fasting, I've been fasting a whole lot longer than they have, right? But a lot of times people don't feel the same feel-goodness that I have. And, okay, I'm recording this in May of 2021, and a lot of people are getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, I think a lot of Americans are skeptical about the COVID-19 vaccine. And I think they still are. I think a lot of people are taking it kind of not wanting to take it. The problem is that a lot of people are financially strapped. And a lot of people can't take the restrictions any longer and are being kind of blackmailed. And that's my opinion. Obviously, I think other people might disagree here. But even at the beginning of the crisis, right, I noticed that the people who were calling COVID-19 a hoax, right? Hopefully there aren't too many people who say that anymore. Obviously, they were financially able to take a 3-week vacation or a 6-week vacation or whatever it was going to be at the beginning, right? There were plenty of people who wanted to take a staycation to begin with, right? And now there's plenty of people who are being blackmailed into taking a vaccine because they can't afford their vacation anymore, right? It really goes to show just how much of a slave you are if you're financially strapped, right? To the point that you'll poison yourself, right? That's my opinion. Obviously, anybody watching this could disagree, but it's made me think very hard about my financial planning and my planning for the future, right? So, for example, this past year, obviously, I'm back in Seattle because I have to work in person now. My connectivity with my networking is very important too. But earlier this year, I took it upon myself to learn how to live in a much more remote setting, right, in the Rocky Mountains in Wallace, Idaho, because I want to be able to adjust to that if the time ever came, right? Anyways, 10,000 hours, some lessons, and I hope we all become an expert on the new world we live in because we're going to be here for some time.